caves. But orcs, they're just bad. They are just bad. Giant racer snakes. Shriekers! They're so cool. He hits the orc in webs. Flooded cave. It's a catapult. Every one of them. A dozen orcs plus their chief flash through the orc ranks. 10. Anyway, then the big guy. Boom! Pouring arrows into the room. Finishes him off. And a hobgoblin. And they bottle them up on those steps. This is not good. Hobgoblin and orc chief fall. On this table, there is a map. There are a dozen little orc figures. And to the east, on the very edge of the map, there are 4 hobgoblins. An army is massing. Bob Johnny says, look, I'm nearly dead, Touchberry's nearly dead, everyone is beat up. We should spend the night in this room. This is something they like to do. They find a dead-end room, and they do actually check it for secret doors. There's no secret doors. They check it for secret doors, though. They like to find a dead-end room with one entrance and make that their camp, because they only have to watch one door, right? Of course, the downside of that is that there's no way out if something tougher than them comes through that door. Anyway, he suggests that. The rest of the group says, no, we can't stay here. We don't know how many more orcs there are. We don't know how many orcs one orc figure represents, right? Is one orc figure 20 orcs? Then we've close to killed the ball. Does one orc figure mean 100 orcs? Does it mean 1,000 orcs? We've got no idea. So maybe not so much, right? Actually, there isn't a specific numeric, equivalency to this orc sitting there. It just means that the orcs hold it. But anyway, they don't know how many there are. And so, no, we have got to get out of here. Quick, search the room. They search the body of the hobgoblin. He's got a little bit of gold on him, not much. They don't look at the weapon, no. They search the body of the orc chief. He doesn't have any money on him, but he does have a key in a pouch, and there is a chest. There's a bed at the far end of the room, the orc chief's bed, and there's a chest at the end of that bed. Okay. Fofire, could you check that for traps? And she does, and doesn't find anything. Now, I rolled, and if there were traps, she would not have found them. But there was no trap. It's the orc chief's chest. He's not going to trap his own chest. Fine. Okay, well, they go to unlock it. Touchberry, could you do it? Now, this may not seem like the best idea. He doesn't have many hit points left, but he does have very good saving throws. So he opens it, and he's also willing to do it. He opens it, and no, it's just treasure. Coins and some gems. 17 gems. They don't stop to look at them, to appraise anything, to count. They just pick up the chest between them and haul out of there, right? Back down through the room where it's basically the barracks room where most of the orcs in this area of the dungeon were sleeping. Back out, and as they come into that sort of secondary middle chamber from the other passage, remember there was the passage back to the supplies, but there was another passage leading out. Very narrow, this one, with steps carved into it as well. Out of that squeeze 2 orcs. Now these orcs are kind of scrawny looking. These aren't frontline battle orcs. They also can hear behind those orcs the barking of some dog-like thing, but not high-pitched like a dog. Deep, throaty, cruel even. Dire wolves. Yes, these are the dire wolf keepers. They're the wolf keepers. They're the ones who kind of, they make sure they're fed and watered and everything. And luckily, the dire wolves are 2 things. 1, they're in kennels. 2, they're too big to fit through this particular passage. These 2 have come to investigate, and just as the party comes out of the other room, right? And Bob Johnny just charges in with his axe, and in one swing fells one of them. The other guy goes to run, right? But Fofire hits him right between the shoulder blades, down he goes. Whew. Faux-Fire is such a clutch archer, right? She's missing and missing and missing, and then when you really need it, she comes in. I think she rolled an 18, so it was like not even a question, right? Boom! All right, quick. The barking and the howling, right, is coming through that passage, and even if the wolves can't get in, they hear it, and nothing seems to be approaching, so probably safe, but someone's going to hear it, right? Let's go. As they're passing through the supply room, as they're going through, they stop, and they ask, can we carry the catapult out of here? Well, it's all disassembled. Yeah, can we carry all the parts? Yeah. And I sort of mentally go over what constitutes a catapult. It's not a trebuchet, it's a tension catapult, a torsion one, right? So, you got 5 people, you got pretty good strength scores among you. And then I think, what would be more fun? Yeah, you could take the catapult, but it is going to massively slow you down. Not only because of the weight, right? It's really not that heavy. It's all the turns, right? This is a small catapult, but it's still, these beams. And so you're going around all these corners. It's going to massively slow you down. If anything comes after you that is even half your speed, it's going to catch up to you. Fleetwood says, that's a risk we'll take. I will be at the back. I'll be the rear guard. I'll carry the bits at the end, and we'll go. They empty the treasure chest into the bag of holding. I said there was still room in there, so that they've got. And they begin charging through the tunnels, or creeping through the tunnels, really, carrying a disassembled catapult. They make their way through the tunnels, and I'm rolling. Does anything come after them? Is anything chasing them? Is anything gonna... No. Part of the reason is that beyond that squeeze, there are the direwolves who are in kennels. There are 4 ogres who are simply too big to get through that little passage. And there is another little cadre of orc guards who have been told to guard the opposite exit, because there's another exit. This actually goes through a mountain ridge and to the other side. They've been told to guard that other side with their lives and to not leave their post unless the Goblin Chief himself tells them to. Well, the Goblin Chief ain't telling anybody anything anymore. So there they stay. And that is why, late in the day, as the last rays of the sun are filtering into this narrow canyon, the heroes of Honeywood and Agnes the Cleric emerge, carrying loot, weapons that can go to Lord Morgan's army, and a catapult. Hang on. Don't go rolling the credits yet. Okay. That little bit that you just watched, that portion of the adventure was actually played in the same session as the last recap episode, okay? That was all part of one session, one time, sitting at the table, boom, we played it all. And I was going to leave it, as one episode, but that episode was getting kind of long. Plus, there was a sort of high point, the discovery that there was an army that was forming off to the east of the kingdom of Strathunwyn, that all of the trouble in the kingdom was the least of their problems, or at least just one of their problems, because more trouble was coming, right? So that was a moment that I wanted to emphasize and oomph, so I made that the cliffhanger, if you will, for the last episode. And that left me with about 10 minutes worth of material for this episode, roughly. So I just thought I'd tack on the next session here. Before I get to that, though, I have got to mention, you will have seen popping up on the screen for, over a year now, maybe close to 2, you will have noticed some beautiful miniatures, right, for the heroes of Honeywood. These miniatures were painted by Ian over in the UK. He's been watching the channel for a while, and he went out on a quest to find the 4 heroes of Honeywood. He had seen the minis, and he was able to identify which ones were which and what companies sold them, etc. So he collected them up and painted them, and he sent me the pictures. He's kept the minis, but he sent me the pictures to use on the channel. So first of all, my thanks to Ian for sending me those pictures, showing me, what you did. It's awesome, and for letting me use the images here on the screen. Locally, there's a good fellow named Bob Hastings. He was one of the GMs at Cleric this year. He's a patron. He's been a channel fan for a while. He contacted me and said, look, I saw in some of the pictures, because sometimes I take a picture of the table. Not often. I don't often show pictures from when we are playing, primarily because the pace goes so fast, right? I'm playing with kids, so there's not a lot of like, what shall we do here, right? Sort of mature pondering. It's, let's do this, right away. And the pace of my table tends to be pretty quick. So I don't stop and take pictures. But I do every once in a while, and I had been posting pictures, and he said, I noticed that you're playing with unpainted minis. I'd like to paint some minis for you. So he also went out and tracked down the 4 Heroes of Honeywood miniatures and painted them up. And because he lives relatively close to me, like within a half-hour drive, we met up at a Tim Hortons, because that's where Canadians meet for coffee. We met up at a Tim Hortons, and he presented me with these 4 little boxes, each individually wrapped and tagged. Very lovely. And I took them home, and I said, okay, when am I going to introduce these? I want to introduce them at the table. I don't want to give them to the players, I don't to my wife and the boys, just at dinner that night. I wanted us to be playing the game and come out with it. So I decided that when they came out of the orc caves into the sunlight, I would then present them the minis. Now, as I just said, the coming out of the cave, that was the end of a session. So that's when I gave them to them. And, I gave them each a box. So go ahead and open that. And the reaction, well, you can hear. Listen.
Oh, we have painted minis. Holy cow.
They thought it was pretty cool. They thought it was pretty cool. They were like, So now we have painted minis. I will still be using Ian's pictures, at least for a while, until I take enough pictures. I only have to take 1 picture of each mini. But you'll notice that the minis are in all sorts of poses. I've taken the sword out of Touchberry's hand and put all sorts of things in it. I've given Fleetwood the ability to wave his dagger around, and even Bob Johnny can swoop his axe. Fauxfire's position is harder to play with, so she's just sort of stuck there. But anyway, I've done all sorts of stuff with the pictures that I have, and editing those image files takes a lot of time. I have to isolate the image from the background and do all this work. Okay, but these are fabulous. And so I'm going to, at some point, I'll be cycling in the minis from Bob into the graphics. Probably for just plain poses to start with, and then I'll start working on, as needed, editing things for motion and animation and stuff. So anyway, huge thanks to Ian, again, for the images that I've been using all this time, and huge thanks to Bob for these wonderful minis that he painted for us. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. All right, on with the show. The heroes step out into the sunlight, and they can see the color on them now, and okay, we got away. They have the catapult. They've been lugging through the tunnels. We've got it. Yes, this is great. We can go back to Lord Morgan with this catapult and everything. It's going to be great. And they hear behind them a howling and a hooting and a hollering. Orcs are pursuing them. Right. Orcs and something else. Is that wolves? Oh dear. The noise eventually did attract the attention of the guards, and those guards, while they were told not to leave, they did give word to another batch of orcs who were in another part of the mountain. There's a whole other cave system that, because the party didn't go that way, they never discovered. And the orcs they mustered them. It took them a while to gather and etc. and arm up and everything, but now they are on their tail. Out they go and into the light. Well, the dying light. It is late in the day. They've spent the day clearing out these caves, or how much of it they did, and now night is setting in. This is the orcs' hour. What are you going to do? All right. We still have web spells. Okay, now that cavern, the last cavern there, had 2 exits, and they figure that one of them came out just kind of around the corner from where they were, that it wouldn't be hard to get from that second entrance to where they are now. So they've got to block up both. So Fleetwood runs in and casts web over one exit to the cave, then comes out, and Bob Johnny webs up the one that they had used. That will hold them for a while. What now? Run! Run! They boot it out of that canyon. There's a long, narrow canyon. The caves are at the very end of it. They boot it out of that canyon into the woods that are at the foothills of the mountains. They race past that old tower, burnt out tower that Touchberry had torched after torching himself. They rush past that, and I tell them, you're carrying this catapult. It is weighing you down. It is slowing you down. I'm like, no, we're going to hold on to it. I don't care. We're not letting this catapult go. I'm like, okay, that's fine, but, understand it has consequences. They're carrying this thing. And eventually night has fallen entirely, and I say now the sound of howling wolves, deep, deep howling. These are no ordinary wolves. This is a dire wolf. Shouts and hollers of orcs echo behind you. They are getting closer. Keep running, keep running. Eventually they enter an area where the ground falls down, and ridges of rock are thrust up. This is called karst. It's essentially the same as what happens when a cave is created underground, except it's happening at the surface, so it's open instead of being, chambers and passages underground. They're exposed to the sky, but the steep rock sides make it this sort of maze of towering, jagged rocks. So they're running through this karst area, and they say, okay, I tell them that the voices and the howls are getting closer. This is where we will set up. We're going to fight them here, right? I say, what are you going to fight them with? You don't have lightning bolt. You've passed that. You don't have any of your magic missiles. You've got one web spell among you. In terms of combat spells, that's it. So yeah, but we can still fight. Okay, you've got no idea how many orcs are coming, It sounds like a lot. We can take them. We can take orcs. No worries. You're like in the low teens of hit points, right? After the healing. You're doing pretty okay, fine. Yeah. Your funeral. Yeah. Anyway, so they're gonna set up, and they hide behind rocks, and Touchberry gathers all the oil that any of the other players have, any of the PCs have, and he makes a trench of oil across the path that the orcs will have to come in, because they say that the land begins to narrow, and the rock formations kind of do make a bit of a funnel. Perfect. So he lays this path of oil out, and he hides off to one side. I'm going to light that. Okay, in come the orcs, led by this huge wolf, this enormous wolf, charging in. I don't know where I got this wolf. It may have come with the minis that I got from Shadow and Sun. It may have been from another whole thing. I don't remember right now, and if it came from you, I don't think it was Shonuff, because I think Shonuff might be from Shonuff. I don't remember who sent it to me, but it's awesome. This big wolf. Anyway, in they all pour, and the orcs. I mean, remember, Dirty Basement Terrain had sent these orcs for Clericon, and they're in my house. I gotta play with them, and the karst as well. The karst stones that you're seeing in the pictures, those are also Dirty Basement terrain. So into the karst pour the orcs, and like, oh wow, there's a lot of them. And thump! Touchberry lights up the oil just as the orcs are crossing that line. 3 of them get torched. Now, how much damage are they going to take? The oil isn't on them, so it's not going to go for 2 rounds. They'll get 1 round of damage because they're crossing over it, right? They'll get 1 round of damage, and then they'll still, unless they're killed by it, they'll be up, and they aren't. They take, I think, 4 or 5 points of damage. It's decent, but it doesn't kill the orcs, especially these lead orcs. These are their toughest group, and it certainly doesn't kill the dire wolf, right? Combat is on. We get arrow fire from foe fire from Bob Johnny. Fleetwood casts Phantasmal Force. He casts a Phantasmal Force of a white dragon. Frostbite, he calls it. It's the white dragon that he casts after having seen Balamorg many episodes ago. He's seen it. It's smaller than a white dragon actually would be, even a small white dragon. But it's still the dragon, And he casts it flying up above. He says, I want it to be out of arrow range, right? So the orcs have short bows, so that's like 150 feet. So it's got to be a little over 150 feet up. Great. I'll stick it up there and try to scare them. All right, well, the orcs get a saving throw because they're not necessarily going to fall for this. I'm not going to roll because there's like 24 orcs out here. I'm not rolling for every one of the orcs. I've also got Dan's orcs out on the board. I'm not rolling for every orc on the board, so I just rolled for groups. Okay, this is for this group over here, right? You know, this is for the dire wolf, and this is for someone you don't see yet. Anyway, about half of the orcs fall for it. They turn tail and run. Some of them crash into their comrades who are coming into the combat, right? Others just weasel through and run away. But some of the orcs don't fall for it. They run right up to the fire, but the fire is going to burn for another round. They can't get past that, but arrows can and come sailing. And Agnes is hit, faux fire is hit. One of the orcs that was charging at Touchberry when he lit, he had tried, halfling sneakiness. They have a 90% chance of not being seen. I rolled a 99. So the orc is like, I got you. And he comes at, so he gets torched by the line as Touchberry sets it on fire, but he gets through and attacks Touchberry. So that combat's happening over there. It gets messy, right? Because there's so many orcs and they're pouring through. Eventually, when the flame dies down, they're coming over. 2 or 3 of them go at Bob Johnny. Agnes is holding a bunch off. Fleetwood is he's staying out of combat because he's got to concentrate on this illusion until those orcs who were frightened are far enough away, right? To the point where they're fooled, they're gone. So he's got to keep this up. He can't get into combat. So Fofire and Agnes are kind of protecting him, keeping him from taking any hits because that'll break his concentration. The wolf saw and believed. The wolf failed at saving throw, so it spun around and it's on its way out. It runs into the fire again and has to decide, am I going to get killed by this dragon? Or am I going to run through the fire? And it's whining and whimpering, but still on this side of the fire. So when the fire eventually goes out, off goes the wolf. It has still bought it. And that was really what Fleetwood was waiting for, to get rid of that wolf. All right. Combat is on. As I say, it's a mess, right? And we played it a while ago, so I don't remember every single step. It's a mess. Bob Johnny eventually casts his last web as the captain of these orcs comes around with a bead on him. Bob Johnny webs him and another orc who was with him. There's the big guy with the flail. Brought out another one of those. Same mini, obviously, but yeah, same kind of soldier, same kind of orc. Swings the flail. He hits like everyone. At that point, Fleetwood had come out to join the combat. He hits Fleetwood and Fofire and Agnes and one of his own comrades, one of his own orcs, just smashes them all. The orc dies. Everyone else has taken damage. Fleetwood had been better off in hit points, but not after that. Now Fofire has the most hit points of the PCs, at least. Agnes isn't doing too great either because she's been one-on-one with orcs for a while. It's just a huge hairy mess. They do finish off. Between the orcs who ran away, the ones who were burned by the fire, the ones they hit with arrows before they crossed the fire line, right? They eventually whittle them down till the only living orcs are the ones stuck in the web, and they kill them. All right. Let's go. Pick up the catapult and keep going. And that's when they hear the someone else.